Everybody ready?
Whenever you are.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. I'll call this meeting to order. I would like to welcome you for coming again and acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 land and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. And this meeting is being videotaped and will be uploaded to our website in a day or two. We will start with introductions on my right.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry. My name is Erwin Kumka from Albert Beach.
Hello, I'm Graham Randall from Wanasing.
Penny McMorris.
Raymond Morrow, CAO.
Steve Axworthy.
Hi everyone, Mike Bertmanovich.
Thanks, everybody. The camera's right behind you. All right. We have an adoption of the agenda. Be it resolved that the agenda be adopted with the following amendments. Remove the Trans-Canada Trail delegation and add the public consultation session regarding accessibility's standard for transportation. May I have a mover and a seconder?
Should probably explain why TCT is not coming.
Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. Any further discussion on this agenda? Graham?
Quick question, whether for this meeting or not, the committee chair appointments and the possible rearrangement of that, when's the best time and place to deal with that for us?
I think we can deal with that in November, either the first or the second meeting.
Got it, thanks.
Okay. And the TCT delegation has asked to be moved to the November 5th meeting, to my knowledge. Any other agenda items? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Be it resolved that the minutes of the October 1st, 2019 regular council meeting be adopted as presented. Graham, may I? Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any further discussion on the minutes of the meeting? Council had a chance to read them, I trust. Okay, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, moving on to our delegations. Our first delegation is Janice Charco from the Boreal Shores Art Tour. Janice, do you want to go to the microphone, if that's better, please? And make sure it's on, though. You'll have to pick it up and press the button so that it goes green.
Got it.
Perfect.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say I do 8 of these each fall, and this is the biggest turnout I've seen at any. Most impressive. I'd like to thank the RM of Victoria Beach at the outset for your support for the last 2 years. You've given us financial support and we appreciate it very much. This is, if the Boreal Shores Art Tour is heavy at one end or the other, it's for sure heavy at this end. We have a great turnout of artists in Victoria Beach and in this building actually for the last 2 years. So that's been great. I'm here because we are striving for self-dependence in the Boreal Shores Art Tour, but we're not quite there yet. We're heading into our 4th year. The first 2 years we bought signage, primarily signage. And this last year we got it right, I think. Most of the feedback that we had was that the signage was good and professional. They were custom designed for us and made for us by one of the colonies. And they stood up really well. And we have banners, inside banners and outside banners at all of our locations. So we're quite well taken care of for signage. The only thing really that is two things are our focal point this year. Our website was done by a volunteer, which is wonderful, but as the tour has grown and we're receiving more and more applications, having artists trying to upload good quality images and all the answers to social media questions on a shaky platform was very frustrating for all concerned. And so this year we're going to pay a professional website designer to fix those problems for us so that the website works more seamlessly for everybody, both the artists applying and us. I should say that the art tour, I would say, was very successful over the first 3 years. We've had, the last 2 years, the artists have sold about $40,000 of art in each of those 2 years. So that is money coming into the community. And this last year, on the passports that we handed out, we asked people to tell us if they had bought tanks of gas, eaten in a restaurant, or paid for accommodation. And the numbers from that are on your second page. And they were very impressive. There was, I don't have a copy of it here, but I think there's 78 tanks of gas or lunches or something like that. Oh, 63, okay, fine. 10 people stayed overnight in bed and breakfasts, primarily. And lots of lunches. Also, we asked people if they wanted to give us their email address so that we could add them to our newsletter list. And I don't know about you people, but people have to pry my email address out of me these days. I don't give it out for much. And I'm keying them in now. We had 84 people who wanted to hear more about the Boreal Shores Art Tour. So I think it's, we're on to something that's going to continue. Our artists have taken more of an interest. They are, as I say, becoming more self-sufficient. So we've gone from an 89% publicly funded event in year 1 to, I think it's 29% in this last year. So we're definitely heading in the right direction as far as making it pay for itself. The artists all pay a fee. We sell ads in the brochure, and we ask for some sponsorship. So in the first 3 years, I did council presentations where I went out and asked councils to give us $1,000 each, and quite a number of them did. This year, we've taken a serious look at our budget and said we don't need $1,000 from every council. We want to pay to have the website done. We want to pay to have a generic brochure out in the communities and a little bit more coverage in the city to bring more people out from the city. So we've lowered our ask to half. So we're asking the councils if they would give us $500 for the coming year, and obviously anything we get will be gratefully accepted. And hopefully, within perhaps a year, we will reach the self-sufficiency goal that we set out for. We did determine right from the outset that we wanted to have a pot in the bank so that each year we weren't starting out paying for things personally, and we've done that. So we've kept a consistent amount in our bank account, which is enough to cover us for a year if all else failed. Okay.
Does council have any questions for Janice?
I suppose my only question is 2017, 2018 was had quite a few more visitors than 2019. Just curious if you have a sort of a plan of getting those numbers back up. I mean, it's not a substantial difference,
No.
but it's a decent number.
It's a bit, yeah. Well, this year, I've done a CBC radio interview on Saturday morning of the weekend of the tour, both years. And this year, while I was on waiting with the host for it to start, he said to me, Janice, I don't have your brochure. And that made me realize that we need more volunteers working in our organization. So rather than the board of 4 of us doing all the work, which we did for the first number of years, we're expanding into teams. You can't get people to take on a job by themselves anymore, it seems. Everyone's afraid of that, having that responsibility. But if 2 people can do it together, then they're more willing. So our goal this year is to really go after the city media outlets with brochure distribution, both in the spring when the brochure comes out, and again about a week before the tour, so that we can try and get some CTV, CBC TV, Winnipeg Free Press, more coverage in the city. That's the main goal, to increase the numbers.
Okay.
We didn't have a lot of that before. It's very expensive. as you know.
You mentioned you were going to be hiring a professional website developer, but your expense for last year was $330, and this year you're only budgeting for $600?
It's because I haven't got his quote yet, and so last year he did work for us and fixed up quite a few things, and he was extremely reasonable in what he charged us. So I don't know yet. I've been pestering. He is the typical website designer that you have to chase, and so I don't actually know what his quote is going to be, but it's likely going to be more than that.
A quick question. As far as your plans for 2020, and you've explained volunteers, more work with media, have you set a target for the number of visitors for 2020? What do you hope to achieve in 2020? Back to the 2018 levels or a little more?
No, we'd like to go higher than that,
So
actually.
maybe 6,000?
Yeah. Well, not 6,000 now. You have to keep in mind that the 6,000 are not individual people. Those are how many stops were
right.
made. Yeah. But I think we feel like that the impact, the input we're getting from the people from the city is very good. So once people hear about it and come and do it, they love the terrain, they love driving the region, they love the art and the fact that it is an art show and not crocheted dishcloths. That kind of thing.
No,
So
that's good. And you could appreciate that potential supporters like to hear that you have a goal that you're working towards. So, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, Council? Okay.
Do I have to do anything to apply beyond this? Is there an application form online or anything?
No, and you've given us your letter with your request.
I have, yeah.
And we'll be discussing all of our grants during our budget process, which will be in probably January.
Okay.
So we will then let you know.
All right. Thank you very
But
much.
thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks.
Okay. Up next is Walter Kleinschmidt.
Starting off and then with thank you, Council. And starting off with an apology. Typically a technical person, I forgot one doodad back in Winnipeg, so I cannot project on the screen the presentation, but you've all received it. Mr. Morrow had passed it on to the councillors, so I apologize to those of you in the audience that will have to take my words for it instead of a visual, which would have been useful. I do have a summary which will help us focus my submission to you so I don't talk too long, which I'd like to give to the members of the council. Thank you. What I would like to speak to the council about is I'm not really a delegation. I'm a person of one, and I came individually on purpose because I want to discuss with you and submit to you research I've done on the legal aspect and the provisions of property law as it applies to lakeshore properties, a subject that has been discussed many times under different circumstances. My discussion and the concern I have is in response to 2 years ago the decision of the council to presume endorse a submission that was done at the time by the owners of two plots of land, 101-300 and 101-400, usually referred to as the Thompson properties, which are properties on the side of the that go to the lakefront. And the question that we're raising today is, what are the boundaries of the plot, and what is the impact of public access on the beach north of the plot's boundary lines? As you'll see from our call 2 years ago, it was decided and explained that the property owners had decided to express their rights of ownership and control of the property up to the water's edge, on the basis of a grant of property which dated back to, I think in their case, 1919. For those that are curious, I've got every titles of certificate of title since the one from the Crown, and tracing back from 1909, where the Crown had its first certificate issued, after the surveys of the 1800s, up to the most current survey certificate to Robert Andrew Thompson. It went from the Crown, by the way, to the Victoria Beach Company, then to the Timber Company, and then to the Thompson family members on a number of successive bases. The issue is, and the concern that I have as an individual, and a lot of friends have, is the ability to walk on the beach. And this is what we want to talk about. The plots were part of the Crown Land Survey in the 19th century. In those days, and if you look at the certificate of title, they were very well described in many details and actually not drawn up. It was eventually drawn up in 1985 on a piece in the copy of that document is on the table there, and it's included in the submission I've sent to the council, where it's taken all of the certificates and identified the property line. And the key issue today is that the properties which were confirmed on December 10th, 1985 and registered with the Winnipeg Land Title Office is the legal document that replaces the written description of the properties in all times before. Okay, and that's part of the real estate, the Real Property Act, Clause 121.4. So that's a fact. It's not a debatable fact, per se. The property line goes to the ordinary high water mark. Now, if you read, it will say that property owners whose plot goes to the edge of the lake, or the edge of the water could be a river, but the edge of the lake or the river is defined by the high property. Usually, it may be different in some river cases, to the ordinary high water mark. It is not a movable target, which was the primary error or misinterpretation in the Policeman's Corner column of July 27, 2018, which said the property line moves with the water's edge up and down the beach, and you may walk in the water, which is Crown land, but none on the beach. And that is totally, totally wrong. Interestingly, and to give you the confidence, had the opportunity to review a letter which was shared with me, which was issued in you come here really well prepared and get by the firm of Atkins, McCauley, and Thorvaldson in 2000, which was entitled Lake Winnipeg Shoreline Erosion, Real Property Interests, which describes the kind of conveyance of properties against on the shores of Lake Winnipeg, and specifically describes those two particular properties. And what is of character there is that the property goes to the water's edge, defined as the ordinary high water mark. There is no reserve for the Crown, the 1.5 chain or 99 feet. So the owner of the property is next to the water. And in that context, he has riparian rights, as every property owner who is next to water. And riparian rights, which were described in the article as the basis of ownership, have nothing to do with ownership. In fact, in case laws, if you research it, it says specifically, does not convey any rights of ownership. What it is, it's a right and the responsibility of each property owner to have access to water, be it for drinking, be it for irrigation, be it for fishing, or, as the Thompson family did in 1919, to receive logs for the lumber mill, which were operating there. And the obligation is not to damage the water downstream if you're in the river, or to affect other riparian owners in terms of excessive usage. So the issue of riparian right does not exist under what we're discussing. We don't dispute, there's no dispute in terms of my observation, to the current ownership of the land, obviously. There's no change in the condition of the grant from the first one from the Crown in 1909, and I've reviewed them all. There's no Crown reserve between the plots and the water's edge. So these are all correct facts. So all we're submitting for your consideration is that the plot boundaries are the water's edge, but by law, that edge is defined as the ordinary high water mark. It is not a moving boundary as suggested on the article of July 27th, which you issued in the Victoria Beach Herald, which was the basis of the position of the no trespassing signs on the beach, which have been very, very depressing and very concerning, and everybody's wondering why. And the justification given at that time at public meetings was, well, people walk by on the beach and they throw garbage in my property. They do this and they do that. Maybe a fact, and that's a fact for which we have sympathy. But people throwing garbage in your yard does not give you the right to say, well, the sidewalk now belongs to me because I don't want you to throw garbage in my yard. In other words, this nuisance and this misdemeanor in some cases is not a justification for taking possession of the beach. It's not a moving, so the boundary is not moving. And the movement of the ordinary high water mark boundary over the last 134 years is done through, the high water mark moves with natural accretion, erosion, or diluvian. In other words, addition, removal through wear and tear, or removed by the water moving in, and then, if you want to, taking the sand away. In one of the reports, of which I've quoted a page in the submission to you, you'll notice that actually the erosion at that part of the beach is one of the smallest area in the entire Lake Winnipeg, in part because we're protected on that part of the area, and we're part of the Winnipeg River estuary. So the conclusion is the beach, as we know it, is Crown land. It's part of the lake, and the public has a right of access. When you think of a high water mark, you can assume that most of the time the water, lake water, is below the high water mark. It's at medium or it's at low, which means at least 350 days of the year, if you include when it's frozen and the beach is there, the beach is public and it's accessible. So the request we're making to council, or I'm making to council, and I say, well, I'm not here with a delegation, it's not a petition, it's not a matter of trying to get popular support. I think it's a matter of fact at law. And as I said earlier, a lawyer, which issued a letter to the Lake Winnipeg Shoreline Erosion Advisory Group, as part of all the work that was done in the year 2000 and 2001, confirmed, and read it, and you have a copy of it, of that letter, confirms absolutely the nature of the subdivision and the nature of the land, which is beyond the high water mark, which is public. So we believe, I would like to ask council to issue for the public consumption an updated article to correct the misrepresentation and the misunderstanding of the article that appeared 2 years ago. And when I look at it unemotionally and not looking, oh my damn, what the hell is this all about? I think the error was that the watermark, when it goes up and down with the water, misunderstood, the person reading it misunderstood through natural erosion, accretion, or diluvian without man-made changes, as opposed to the daily changes the water levels occur because of the wind and other factors. So basically, by clarifying that sentence in the article, you're actually clarifying, restating the law properly. And then, once that given, request that the signs be removed and encourage the owner of the plot to define his north boundary correctly if he so wishes, which I suspect, and again I've given you a drawing, which overlays on Google Earth the actual plot plan which I have on the table here. and it shows very little changes. You know, it's a few feet, a dozen, 20 feet here and there, and it's all a matter of erosion. So the high water line is correct, and where the edge of the property is would be a natural place for them to identify their property line. And yes, absolutely, ask people not to trespass and to respect the property, as we all wish our properties to be respected. And I've added that riparian rights have no bearing on the question of land ownership. Riparian rights do not convey any rights to ownership. There are a set of rules which defines plot owners the right to access and use the water from public body of water, lake, or river. So this is in summary what I submitted to you on 8 pages, which you've received. And again, my apologies to members that have taken the time to come to this meeting, and I don't have it on the screen for them. It was not my intent. That is, but I will stay back and show it on the computer if anybody's interested, or send it by email. To me, it's a document that definitely can be shared, because it's nothing secret in there. Very straightforward.
Does council have any comments before I jump in? Go ahead. Thank you for your presentation. I have a few comments or questions for you, if I may. I don't agree with most of what you've just said. According to the same lawyer, the same letter that we provided to you, I have a completely different view. But
okay, well,
in our view, not just mine, I believe it's most of council's, a riparian right does not depend on the ownership of the bed of the body of water. It applies to all land which comes to the edge of the water under the grant.
absolutely correct.
Right?
This is what I said.
This right does not depend on the manner in which the land is described in the grant.
That's correct.
Right? And this doctrine was confirmed in the 1973 case, Chuckery versus the Queen, in this letter.
Correct.
Correct.
What the key word is edge of the plot. And the edge of the plot is not
No, edge
movable.
of the water.
Edge of the water. And
Edge of the water.
And I have here a lot of information in 5 acts of Manitoba,
Okay.
which defines the edge of the water, as per this plan, as the
Okay,
ordinary
okay.
high water mark.
Okay.
And that is basically the substance of everything.
There's no depth stated in the legal plan. There's no reserve withheld by the Crown on this land.
That's correct.
No reserve held by the Crown,
Correct.
which is the same as this. This is what we're talking about. There's no Crown reserve held
No,
on the Thompson property.
The bed of the lake is a Crown land, and when the
No,
water goes...
no,
yeah,
no,
The
well-
lake, the grant is by the Crown, and the Crown has granted the Victoria Beach Company Limited,
Okay.
probably we should then convey it on.
Okay. The doctrine of accretion. You talk about accretion,
Yep.
right? It applies with any accretion being added to the property owner's land. So if the Thompson property accretes, it is,
Correct.
they can,
No argument.
right. If it erodes,
They lose it
it
as well.
erodes, they lose it. But when it comes back, it's still theirs.
Correct.
Correct.
But accretion, in fact, I brought it here. I got a 9-page document that defines that doctrine, and it's by natural process, by moving water, not artificially, and it's slow and almost not noticeable. So it's not something that happens overnight, and it's not the dailies.
But that's
daily up
not
and
even
down.
the issue here, I guess.
Well, it is issue because you're suggesting that as the water goes up and down, the property line goes up and down. No, it does not. And
The ordinary high water mark does change.
No, it does not. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Check
it does.
that in the legal dictionary.
Okay, the municipality also further, though, Walter, does not get involved in civil matters of dispute.
No, but
At
you
this point-
did enforce an interpretation of the plot.
We did not, that was the Victoria Beach Police. However, the
they work for you.
municipality, the council is not prepared at this point to remove signage that is not ours to remove. We believe it was legally erected by the private property owner, and I am unaware if they are or are not prepared to remove the signage. But another question, has anyone in your area who has issues with this ever taken the time to contact the property owners, ask them if there could be any kind of a compromise or any kind of a solution that the people who have enjoyed their beach for many years and would like to enjoy it for more years could sit down and possibly talk to the owners instead of going through lawyers or whatever may happen from here? Has that been,
Okay.
have they
No,
been approached?
I didn't feel it was up to me to go to the property owner to to basically challenge something that happened which I did not know the circumstance. All I knew is the police came, or the representative of the police, which I believe are your employees as opposed to the RCMP, to Resident Owners Association meeting in Albert Beach on both sides of Safis Road, and explain what had happened on the basis of the article that was also published. So it's very transparent, very open, and it did take a year to respond to it.
Okay.
The fact is, to negotiate a compromise implies that either the answer, the solution is not straightforward, or I think, to me, there is no compromise. There's an understanding, and I'm quite happy to meet with them, but my recommendation to council, if they're unsure of the grounds of saying, is to ask for certification by the landowners with a survey plan up to date of their property as it stands today, showing the ordinary high water mark, and on that basis define the beach as public. That's a request that doesn't cost you anything, and basically they've done the survey because they've identified the back of the property quite carefully.
So
But they have not defined the front of the property in a way that's visible and verifiable.
if their property is in the water, how would you like them to prove that? Like, how would you, they can't put a
I'm
stick in
willing
the
to
water?
bet my annual taxes that it's not in the water. That is not.
Oh, wait a minute. Your taxes don't come to the arm of Victoria Beach, so that is no good to me. Forget it.
Just to
Forget
prove,
it. That's off
just
the
to
table.
prove I'm not totally stupid.
That's off the table. Yeah.
If you go to your letter of your lawyer, it describes the 6-level method of conveyance of land, if you recall the
Okay,
section.
but
And
as I've
yours is
just,
C. Yours
I'm
is
just,
section C.
okay, I'm just going to tell you though that right at this point, the RM is not involved to get, is not prepared to get involved in what we see as a civil matter.
I think that's a fair response at this time.
At this
I would
time.
ask, and what I would ask is that you ask the owners of those 2 plots to provide to you a survey certificate, recognizing that that is a legal document, or the certificate under the real estate law applicable in Manitoba, passed in 1930, I think, and on that basis reconfirm to your satisfaction, where the property line is.
Sure. I'm just going to let Raymond speak on a couple points.
There's a couple of points, Walter. When you refer to Akins-Macaulay, Herb Peters' legal opinion,
Yeah.
that's not a legal opinion to the municipality. It's a legal opinion that was provided to the province of Manitoba, basically. And if you look at page 5, I'm just going to point out a couple of things.
Okay.
Page 5, C, which
Yes.
is exactly what Mr. Thompson's property is like.
That's correct. That's how
It's a
she was saying.
plan with no depth stated, no reserve withheld by the Crown. In other
Correct.
words, it's to the ordinary high water mark was the property boundary.
Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah.
on that basis...
Yeah, but you have to read it all.
Okay.
And it says here, the property owner in this situation will be considered to be a riparian owner. And as such, the doctrine of accretion applies with any accretion being added to the property owner's land. In the event of erosion, the property owner will lose the land which erosion takes away. That's one point. There's another point I want to make. We have a property owner at the end of 504 who acquired the land in front of him, and he's the very same situation. Through the Real Property Act, he's acquired title to it. So there's another case in point where the property ownership ends up belonging to the adjacent owner. And all these examples that he's provided, he provides 5 or 6 examples
yeah.
on the map, they all confirm this.
Yeah, and in item C, which you taken completely, where the definition of the ordinary high water mark under C is defined as a high water mark at the moment of the survey. Then I think F, the high water mark is defined by a measurement. In the case of F, the owner of the property needs to go to court to reconfirm the new property line as a result of accretion or erosion.
There's no Crown Reserve on that.
Yeah,
Sorry?
there's no, this property has no Crown Reserve.
I know, but the Crown Reserve only confirms the riparian rights of that owner, as every owner of farm owners along the St. Lawrence Seaway, and all the property owners along the Lake Winnipeg, where there's no reserve. I'm not disputing that. What I'm not suggesting, confirming, is that the property line is the ordinary high water mark, and that line moves very slowly through accretion that doesn't move with the flow of water every day. The beach stays the same. If you were the 90s, the 1.5 chain reserve, then the accretion and erosion would apply to the Crown land in that same in the example of A and B, I think, where there's a reserve given, okay? But in the case of C, there's no reserve, and everything you said was correct, but this line, which on this drawing is 1885, needs to be updated to 2019, and that line is fixed. On the short run, and it varies over time on the change of the water, and there's a 20-page, well, many documents, but at the time of that letter, there's a complete separate study, or parallel study, which defines the effect of erosion and an increase.
Walter, if the property owners agreed, and they do not have to provide us with a survey that proves that this land is all theirs and that they have a right to put no trespassing signs on the beach, would that satisfy you?
I would find that, if I was one of your councillors on your side, I'll speak for them, a very dangerous precedent. It's like asking me, if I take the guy's next door property and I refuse to show you a survey to prove that it's my property.
I'm just saying they don't have to provide us with anything if they don't want to, is my understanding. But if they did, if they decided that okay, we'll show you what our property survey says, and it says we own to the water line.
Okay, and then I would pull out the legal dictionary, the Manitoba law, the Water Act.
Okay, so if you want to do that, if you would like to do that, then this is a civil matter. This is not a municipal matter.
But you're the one that created the public situation.
No, the signs were up before that article went in the newspaper.
Well, I'm surprised that you didn't ask for that.
Up.
Yeah. Then what did you ask for evidence that they were putting signs in the right place on the property? The fact that it said, it's mine, is a very hard one to swallow. Any one of us could do that around their property. Le Camp Notre Dame's property line also goes to the water's front. There's a lot of properties that go there. Doesn't mean...
But that's private property. We can survey municipal property, but we can't survey private property. We can ask for a survey.
You can ask for a survey.
Yes, we can.
And if someone's going to put on something that's questionable, why could they not be, quote, obligated? Because there is a plan right there. And it's in the government, $18, you get your own copy. I'll bring you a copy.
Okay, we're going around in a few circles here. So I would say that we don't have anything more, unless anyone else on council has anything more to add to this discussion.
I think,
Go ahead.
like, the amount of research that he did was fantastic. I think the problem right now is that it's not really the place to have this discussion in detail. So, I mean, for us to sit down and really understand more thoroughly what you're saying, then maybe we can have just a more thorough dialogue rather than speaking this way, which we're not going to achieve anything right now, but you've made the point very clear. But maybe there's something we missed and we can sit down and have a conversation, but right now we're not getting anywhere at all. No, so I think we should move on. I think that would be the most effective thing, and then maybe afterwards we can sit down and take another look.
I'd like to suggest that if yourself or one of the council would like to take the time with me, and then the two of us, I don't think I should be going to any landowner and say, I think you've done that, probably, I think, but I'm quite happy to go along and help explain and bring the information with me. And, there's about 6 acts that you refer to. There's a lot of information there. I can see where the confusion is, and the confusion is, what is a property abutting the water? And there's very clear explanation and on different pages of the act. And the property line is exactly, and that's why that's certificated. And I spent quite a few hours in the land title office.
I bet you did. Okay. Can I call it a day for now, and we will...
Well, you know, the next step, Madam Reeve, in terms of at what level do I know we stand? I don't want to see the subject buried, obviously, and I don't want to create a public type of situation. I don't think it's appropriate. I want the dialogue to continue with the right people to bring it to the owner's attention. I've got no problems meeting the owner with somebody from council on the basis that the premise we're making is that they're on Crown Land. Either that, or I go to Brandon to the Crown Land office and say that someone is overstepping their Crown lands, which escalates it to a level which I don't think is in our interest for the way we like to manage our affairs.
No, I don't
But
think
that's
it's
all
in
you'd
it.
leave me to do if nothing else happens.
Are you acting on your own behalf, or do you have a group of people who have been asking you to speak on this issue?
No, I can say I resisted. I have a fair number of interested parties and a few people that are scared of the subject, let's be honest, and I chose to do it on my own, including spending the money to get all this document together, rather than try and make it a political party or popularity movement. I didn't think that served the interests of our community. We live together, we work together. That beach has been there for at least 60 years that I've been around, and before that, I suspect. Okay. And so I'd like to resolve it accordingly.
I'm not sure what the next steps are, to be honest.
Well, I think Mr. Steve has suggested a step. I don't want to volunteer him because he had the courage to speak up, but any one of, to speak.
There's also the issue. There's also the issue of the property owners themselves. They have a voice in this issue.
What I'm suggesting is that if someone is willing to sit with me to go through this, and we agree to at least the questions, I'm quite happy to join the two of us to go see the property owner at that time. Yes.
Okay. Can we leave it there, and we will get back to you on this? And I thank you very much for all your effort.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. All right, Council, moving on to committee reports. As we said, Trans-Canada Trails rep is not here today. They are, I believe, coming back on November 5th, or coming on November 5th, not coming back. So moving on to committee reports, Public Works. Mike or Graham?
Thanks, Penny. Before we get into the formal report, just to mention that yet another one of our Public Works employees very recently received their Level 2 water treatment certification, and this should be good news to everybody who's on the public the public water system, that the quality of the water and the service that provides that water will continue to be of optimal quality. From Public Works, the MTS trail that's north of Highway 59 that goes from the gate to the Public Works yard, where garbage and recycling bins have been located to, is cleared and widened. So hopefully that everyone has good access to the relocated facilities. And also a ramp has been completed to access the recycling bins. I know that there was an issue there at first with the stairs making accessibility to the bins a bit of an issue. That's now been overcome. A couple of cautionary notes, please. When you are using the large green commingled bin, it is not for household garbage. It's for cans, plastic, and cardboard, and that's it. No plastic bags, because we actually get hammered on our bottom line. We actually pay penalties on the recycling that we take to our agent, and we're penalized for it. So there is a small container that's meant just for plastic bags as you go up the stairs on, I believe, the right-hand side. If you could please make sure that the plastic bags go there. Also, nothing else but glass in the glass bin. And a note here is that toilets are not glass. So I guess somebody's been... Somebody thought porcelain was close enough to glass that they decided to throw a toilet in the glass-only recycling bin. Glass means glass, please. We continue to maintain a hazardous waste service as well. There's a bin That's right beside the garbage bins for items such as paint, spray cans, pesticide containers, old propane tanks, electronics, cell phones, TVs, what have you. So please avail yourself of that. As some of you may have seen, it's hard to miss, bears continue to be a real issue in the RM. And now coming up to hibernation time, these bears are looking for like 25,000 calories a day in their diets to help sustain them over the winter. These are extremely powerful animals, as evidenced by the fact that they have actually ripped the steel lids open on a couple of our older bins, and they've also managed to wreak havoc even on some of our bins with the new aluminum lids. So please be wary. Don't leave garbage around the yard, and Public Works will continue to maintain those bins. The new lids with the catches, I think, have been a tremendous experiment, and we will take lessons learned from everything that we've learned from the bears this season, and we'll make sure those bins are just that much more secure next year. Civic signs have been ordered. The orders have been sent in, and the new civic signs will be installed this fall by Public Works, so long as the ground isn't frozen. So hopefully we have about 6 months, but I don't think it's going to happen. The Public Works folks are continuing to work in clearing the deadfall of the many dead trees. This problem has been exacerbated, of course, by the recent storm, where it seems every road you went down there was a tree across it, and somebody was fastidiously calling the RM office. And the RM appreciates that reports are being directed to the Public Works office, and people are using things like e-service so that these requests don't fall through the cracks. They actually do get addressed. As you all know, because of the recent power outage, a precautionary boil water advisory was issued on October 11th. We will not be incurring the costs of testing to have the boil water ban lifted between now that the water's off, as you know. So, I believe, I think that's about where we're at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Finance, Irwin? Microphone.
As of the end of September, our financial position is behaving as expected. Our long-term reserves dropped by $93,000 from a year ago, and we had used some of our reserve funds to purchase some new equipment. Our reserves actually increased month over month from last month by $16,000. Again, essentially what happens is the reserves are used as a slush fund, and we'll move money in and out of those as required. Accounts receivable have continued to drop to $618,000 compared to last year, indicating that administration is doing a good job in collecting unpaid taxes. Cash is up by $146,000 over last year to $659,000, again, mainly due to the timely payment of taxes by our ratepayers. Our operating surplus to date is $410,000 compared to last year's surplus at this time of $312,000. Very positive. Combining reserves, cash, and receivables, we are actually $12,000 lower than last year, but this is a minor amount. It could easily be affected by timing receipts of deposits or payables. The financial results are very predictable. In the fall, our surpluses will slowly erode because our expenses continue, but our revenue streams tail off. Again, I think it's fair to say our situation is, we're in better shape today than we were this time last year, and I commend administration for their good work in that regard.
Thanks, Irwin. Protective Services, Steve?
Just loading up here. There you go. September was a fairly busy month. There was one high-speed pursuit that covering approximately 24 kilometers. A vehicle ran into a tree on Sunset, resulting in a write-off. It's too bad for the owner. No break-ins were reported, which is fantastic news because usually around this time they start to go up. Traffic has been monitored without any issues. The beach is fairly quiet now, and yeah, hopefully everybody's enjoying this really gorgeous fall weather we have. With respect to the with fire, unfortunately, we weren't able to generate a report for this past month. But from my understanding, it's been fairly quiet, and especially with all the damp conditions, it looks like it's going to be a pretty good spring.
On that note, Erwin, Graham, and myself had an opportunity to travel with the fire department on an exercise, a training exercise about a week ago. And it was very enlightening to be up in those big trucks, going between the trees, through the trees, getting smacked by the trees, and just seeing the totally different perspective from that high up. It's very different than walking or riding your bike along the avenues. We went down Sunset, and when the guys opened the doors and tried to get out with all their gear on, Erwin was geared up, and get their hoses and stuff off the trucks, there's just no room. There's no elbow room at all. It's quite something. Anyways, it was nice to be involved, and I really appreciate that they invited us.
It was certainly an eye-opener for myself. You know, I said, do you have any gear for short guys? And sure enough, they did. That stuff is heavy. I mean, it's like 40 pounds walking around, and it really gave me an opportunity to experience one of my childhood goals of becoming a fireman, at least for the night. But all kidding aside, you know, the work that our fire persons on a volunteer basis do is really not, I don't think, fully appreciated by us. And my appreciation of what they do when the fire call comes out is certainly been elevated. Driving down those streets at night, Victoria Beach in the fall is really dark. And just navigating,
Only at night.
well, just navigating those roads was really challenging, you know, and I think we're going to, I think council, at least the three of us, have a much better appreciation of some of the issues that we didn't fully appreciate before.
There was some conversation before about either taking a picture of the fire truck down some of the streets to give people a proper appreciation for just how tight it really is, to put some perspective on this issue that we keep talking about in terms of hedging out just a couple feet, but also possibly even putting the truck down and having people come over and take a look at the fact that there quite literally is no room, and that when you try to imagine moving quickly and trying to see a child that might dart out in front of you, I mean, you won't see it. Yep. So that's, you know, just to put some perspective, and I think that'd be a really fantastic idea to do during the summer.
Okay, and thank you for mentioning photography. It helps to make me feel needed. I did take a series of photos during the exercise, and some of these are going to be used, Steve and Mike, to go forward with the discussion of cleaning out, making a little bit more room on our roads. It illustrates it quite graphically, so thank you for mentioning that, Penny.
All right, I have no report for special events. Golf course?
The golf course is now closed. For some strange reason, and despite a very dry start and zebra mussel infested sprinkler systems, the course under Carl and his staff's excellent work salvaged what could have been a disastrous season, and it turned out to be just to be another year of enjoying the green gem that it is. I had mentioned in a previous report that we will be looking at some equipment replacements next year, and there's also been talk of some extensive renovations required inside the clubhouse, and a couple of other issues that we'll be sitting down and discussing with Carl very shortly.
Great. Thank you. Municipal buildings?
Municipal buildings. Mike and I are co-chairs of the municipal buildings, so it's Mike and I who will be spending some time with Carl. We believe later this week, Mike, to begin to get a grip on what repairs and renovations are needed at the golf course. There are other buildings as well that I'm trying to get a grip on and quantify, as Erwin likes to say. I'm soliciting quotations on various types of work that are likely to be required in preparation for the budget discussions. And that includes the doctor's roof and the former building inspector's office, and so on and so on. I'm getting the information together on these so that council can make informed decisions. And going forward from our October 9th strategy session, I'll be meeting shortly with, well, as a matter of fact, tomorrow with Brad, and probably the following day with Gary, to begin to take a look at some of the possible items for discussion as far as building enhancement or extensions. It's premature to discuss them at this point, but we are beginning the process of looking into what's needed. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham.
Just real quick on the police building, they won't be staying there this summer. It's basically destitute. There's black molds, whatever kind of mold you can think of, it's in there.
Thank you for mentioning that. We assume that the place is uninhabitable. I've had discussions with 3 different companies to get pricing on temporary accommodation, 2-bedroom unit, possibly a rental trailer type thing. I'm looking into 3 or 4 different possibilities, because whatever we do or don't do on a police building, it sure as heck ain't going to be ready for May long weekend. So I've already taken steps, and I'll bring the information to council, because these units are pretty scarce and often have to come in from out of province, so it's not too soon. I think before the end of this year, we have to make some sort of a booking on a unit to put our seasonal police in. So I'm in hot pursuit there, to use a police colloquialism, and I'll share that with you as soon as I get it.
Thanks, Graham. Doctor Committee, any report?
No report received.
Okay. Communications? No report?
We have a failure to communicate.
Don't say that.
Yeah, sorry, one quick thing. The police board meeting is now on the website, so that is going to be a common occurrence. So now, from now on, police board meetings will be on the website, so they're communications.
As in filmed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, online. Yeah.
Okay. Whew.
I know.
All right.
Fancy.
Thank you. Moving on to the gate, there is no report. It is also put to bed. On to the building inspector.
I'm here. Thank you. Well, I'm glad to see that the time of year and the weather hasn't dampened construction spirits out there. In September, we had one permit pulled for a main dwelling, a garage, an addition, a leveling of a property, 3 demolitions, 1 shed, 2 decks, 2 bunkhouses, a greenhouse, 1 fence, and 1 ramp. The value of the permits, $392,700, and permit fees to be collected, $4,683. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Accessibility. The Accessibility Committee has completed their final review of our updated accessibility plan and our customer service standard documents. They will soon be coming to council for review and approval. Heritage Trails?
Heritage, I've sort of let fall to the wayside. I've just been overloaded with trails issues, but starting hopefully at the end of the month, once all this has finally been resolved in whatever fashion, then the plan is to communicate with different heritage committees around the province and get what they've done. The biggest issue that we face right now is that we have nowhere to put artifacts, especially going to the website and how outdated and antique, which is being very nice to that website, is that I'd like to set up a submission on the site so that people can send in scanned images, because basically what we have to do now is get the images, go into the city, get them scanned, and then bring them back out, which is highly inefficient. If people just simply submit with a detailed description as to what each picture is, then it'll help quite a bit in terms of organization. Trails, TCT's not here. If somebody has a question about it, I'd be more than happy to answer, but I don't feel like talking about it because I'm pretty sure everybody's already aware of it. And yeah, it's been a
let's
happy
stop it
meeting
there.
so far.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Accounts and finances, be it resolved that the October committee reports be accepted as presented. I'll send it that way. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any further discussion on the October committee reports? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now, moving on to accounts and finances. Be it resolved, the following list of accounts be approved for payment. Accounts payable checks 7808 to 7862 in the amount of $120,000, $120,150.25. October 4th, 2019 payroll in the amount of $41,103.57. And Visa in the amount of $11,777.64. I'll pass it left, and I'll pass this right.
I had reviewed the list of accounts. I raised a number of questions with administration and received satisfactory answers, so the list of accounts appear to be in order.
All right. Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. Any further questions on the accounts? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so no business arising from the previous minutes. We move to other business. Bylaw 1589, prohibiting firearms and fireworks. Be it resolved that bylaw 1589, prohibiting the use of firearms and fireworks, be given second reading. I'll send it this way. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any discussion on bylaw 1589, second reading? Steve?
Just one, did we say 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock for number 4 before? Oh, sorry. That's a different bylaw. Nope, I'm good. Yep, nope, sorry.
Yeah, well, I've been doing the same thing when we get them.
I was just looking for my highlights, so yeah, no, we're good. I didn't have any
All
for
right.
that.
Any further discussion?
Again, just to clarify, these are existing bylaws that are just being rewritten to take into account some changes in the provincial law. It's not new material.
Great. Thanks, Erwin. All right. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And that was replacing or updating bylaw 1504. Be it resolved that bylaw 1589, prohibiting the use of firearms and fireworks, be given third reading and passed. Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. Any further discussion on third and final reading? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to bylaw 1590, which replaces bylaw 1505, prohibiting storage of derelict vehicles. Be it resolved that bylaw 1590, prohibiting the storage of derelict vehicles, be given second reading. Pass it your way. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any further discussion on the second reading of bylaw 1590? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to third reading of bylaw 1590. Be it resolved that bylaw 1590, prohibiting the storage of derelict vehicles, be given third reading and passed. Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. All those in favor of bylaw 1590? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to bylaw 1591, regulating burning and fire pits, second and third readings. This bylaw replaces previous bylaw 1516. Be it resolved the bylaw 1591, regulating burning and fire pits, be given second reading. I'm going to go left. I'd like to thank Raymond for bringing all these bylaws forward and updating them. It's been a bit of a job. Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. Be it resolved bylaw 1591 be given second reading. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Third reading of bylaw 1591, regulating burning and fire pits. May I move it this way? Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any further discussion on third reading of bylaw 1591? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Bylaw 1592. Be it resolved that bylaw 1592, firefighting and fire prevention, be given second reading. And this is replacing bylaw 1520. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. All those in favor of second reading of bylaw 1592? Carried. Thank you. I should have asked if there's discussion, but... Moving on to third reading. Be it resolved that bylaw 1592, firefighting and fire prevention, be given third reading and passed. Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. Any further discussion on this bylaw before?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, sir.
Under Part 5, where it describes general requirements and offenses, I think we're missing an offense here. Just like when you see an emergency vehicle on the road, you are supposed to pull over to the right. I believe that throughout the municipality, we should also add a definition of an offense, which is impeding an emergency vehicle. And I have some draft wording for it that could be added to the section. Essentially what it has to do is making sure that emergency vehicles responding to a call are given as clear access as possible to get to the location where the emergency exists. so that they can respond in as timely a manner as possible, whether it be a fire or medical emergency or such. The suggestion would just be that another offense would be for impeding an emergency vehicle, and the wording would be somewheres in or something like, it should be an offense for any person to willfully block or impede an emergency vehicle while responding to an emergency, whether on foot, on bicycle, or in a motor vehicle.
I may be incorrect, but that's a provincial statute, isn't it? To prevent blocking of an emergency vehicle?
Well, so would tampering with a rescue apparatus, wouldn't it? That'd be pretty provincial, too. It just seems to me that it's something that's missing from this.
Okay, any count, Erwin, you're looking like you need a microphone, please.
It just seems common sense not to interfere, but are there not provincial legislation that already deals with that?
You're asking me?
I don't know. Who are we asking?
Whoever might have an answer.
You need the statute.
We need the statute in front of us. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we should postpone third reading of this bylaw.
Well, it is an issue that has been brought to my attention by firefighters and emergency responders, and I think that it is something that should be addressed. Okay. People are putting the safety of our emergency responders at risk, and people are putting their own welfare at risk as well in cases where they don't pull over and give these emergency vehicles adequate space to get by.
Well, it may very well be that we need a municipal bylaw resolution so that we have the authority to ask people to remove, and attaching a fine to it, which is part of what you've been doing, Raymond, is tidying up these moldy-oldy bylaws to comply with the current summary conviction. Anyway, depends on council, but I think that we could, we certainly don't want to defeat it, but I think we could table third reading while we add a few more words, or find out where else we're already covered, one or the other.
If I could just read from the Highways Traffic Act. And I'm showing my age here because this looks like microfont. Where a thoroughfare consists of two or more separate roadways, and between each two adjoining roadways there is an intervening space or physical barrier or clearly indicated dividing section constructed so that it prevents or impedes vehicle traffic entering or crossing the space, holy God, barrier or dividing section, and on each roadway traffic is permitted to proceed in one direction only, except as, nope, never mind, sorry, this doesn't.
Yeah. I don't think that's got anything to do with this.
I think maybe what we're searching for is the municipality's authority to fine somebody for impeding a vehicle, or not.
That's going to take a little bit of research, I think. So let's just hold off on third reading. So point of order here, do I just leave it, not call for the vote, or do I have to just move to table it? No, I don't want to defeat it, so just move to table it until we have more research on that issue. And Mike, you can provide Raymond with your comments on that, and he'll do the research, and then we'll sort this one out. No, council's agreeable to tabling this one? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Bylaw 1593, replacing bylaw 1523, regulating noise. Yes, you can still have parties, just keep the noise down, Erwin. Be it resolved that bylaw 1593, regulating noise, be given the first reading. All right, moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any discussion on bylaw 1593?
please, while we have the author present. Raymond, could you please, Section 5F, could you please clarify what that statement means? The operating of a religious body as heretofore carried on?
As above.
Must have done that off of the camera.
I'm not positive because I just copied from the existing bylaw.
Well, I mean, nobody enjoys a rousing rendition of Kumbaya.
I guess what you
More
have
than
to
me, but-
what you have to read is the beginning of Clause 5, which says, "Nothing contained in this bylaw shall be interpreted as prohibiting any of the following. F, the operating of a religious body as heretofore carried on." So, I would say it's Sunday
Well,
church
you do
events.
specify the ringing of church bells and
Yeah.
and the singing of Christmas
I
carols.
mean, it can be
Christmas.
removed. It's not a big deal if you want to remove it. Like,
Yeah, it's just it
it seems
leaves
to
too much
be-
open to interpretation, and
so I can just strike it for second reading. I'll just make a note if that works.
thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion?
Just one thing that we had discussed at the last meeting, and it was clarified previously, but as I've heard a lot and I've experienced a lot, from now on, after this passes third reading eventually, construction won't be able to start until 9 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays and on civic holidays, and I just heard a thank God from the audience, so there you go. That's not me.
Okay, good point, thank you. All right, any further discussion? We're good?
We were just debating 10 a.m. instead of 9 a.m. specifically for lawnmowers and chainsaws, but that's splitting hairs, so I'll withdraw that suggestion, and it looks pretty good so far.
I still think, not necessarily right now, I think we should go forward and get all this passed, because I think it's good as is. But I would like to look into enforcing possibly electric chainsaws for the future later on, once we look into a little bit more, because I did some more research, and it's becoming more and more, or it's used more and more in municipal bylaws for sound, because it reduces the noise so much. And I've heard a lot of complaints about increasing chainsaw noise and all those machines. So anyway.
I don't think they're quite as effective in most cases as a gas chainsaw, but. Oh, yeah, I might have. But anyway, they just don't have the same reach either. And you know what? When the power's out, then what do we do? Call a beaver. I know. Yeah. All right. So, any further discussion on the noise bylaw 1593? All those in favor of first reading? Carried. Thank you. Proof that council is reading these bylaws. Well done. Bylaw 1594, licensing of private encroachments, which is replacing bylaw 1535. Be it resolved that bylaw 1594, licensing of private encroachments, be given first reading. I don't know where I was. Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. Any further discussion on this bylaw, first reading of this bylaw? Have to admit I had to look up the old one I had to reread it a couple times. Gentlemen?
This is intended to apply to streets and roads. But it does insert the wording public land, which makes it a much broader issue. But the intent is streets and roads with encroachments. How does that speak to property owners who may be encroaching on the road allowance with their plants and shrubberies. Does this bylaw enable us to make them go away? It talks about structures. Okay, what? All right, so we're talking structures, streets, and roads. Keep it simple. Okay, I had one other question, if I may. When we get down to the penalties, and any rule is only as good as the penalties attached to it. $500 for the first offense, and where a contravention continues for more than 1 day, each and every day is a separate offense. How does that play to the 30 days mentioned in item 15? You're going to charge them another $500 a day during the 30-day period? It seems to compound on itself, the way it's worded, unless it's perfectly clear to everybody else here. To me, it sounds a little weird. Explain it to me.
All that is if the person doesn't pay after 30 days, we can add it to their property taxes. So it doesn't matter. I mean, so if it's 2 days, if it's 2 offenses, it's $1,000. Like, I don't see.
Okay, so that's found $500 a day from the time that they're found to be in breach, rather than the date that it was reported or somebody ratted on them or whatever.
That's more having the authority to add it to the property tax.
And they're not technically in breach till the 30 days is expired?
No, I think you're mixing and matching those two. Like, they're two different things. One is,
Yep.
if you're found, liable and you're contravening, it's $500.
Yep.
And if you don't pay that $500 within 30 days, you
Within
can add it
30
to your
days.
property tax account.
I like it better the way you said it than the way you wrote it, but that's fine. If yeah, they all say that. Okay, thank you.
Just one, I didn't have any notes on this, but when you pointed out the 1 day, I don't know. I think maybe give it a couple of extra days, because I mean, I understand like the whole idea is it's probably a portable structure, but 1 day seems a little quick. So I mean, to get a trailer out sometimes might take a couple days.
It doesn't mean that you would necessarily apply it. It gives you the authority to apply it. It's not any different than any other law or bylaw, where you don't always apply it, right?
You know, if the property owner says, okay, I'm going to need a couple of weeks to arrange something or what, fine, then they'll go back and talk to them later. It's not going to be every day.
Yeah.
It's discretionary.
Well, common sense prevails. Who pulls the trigger on a contravention? The cops or a building inspector?
Probably the building inspector,
Okay.
or both. All right, gentlemen. Any further discussion on 1594? What was the?
The structures.
Right, it's structures, yeah. All right, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. Victoria Beach Bylaw 1595, regulating the use of public property, first reading, replacing Bylaw 1539. Be it resolved that Bylaw 1595, regulating the use of public property, be given first reading. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any discussion on 1595? Graham.
I hate to drag these proceedings out, but we are expected to read every word of this.
Yes, we are.
The banks, the slopes, I don't know if it was deliberately excluded, but perhaps some wording ought to go in there for sandbags, where sandbags form an integral part of the slope of the shoreline, and pedestrian traffic up and down those sandbags is beating the hell out of them, and it really ought to be against the law. I'd like to suggest that you add sandbags in with the whether it be definition of face or slope. Pardon?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. That was easy. Okay, here's a harder one. Longer than one day. If you're reading this and taking it literally, as you know I do, all of the stuff you write, Raymond. Technically, everybody's got their boat pulled up on the shore. God help you if it's actually touching the face of the dike. Everybody's illegal. And then the difference between permanent and not permanent is 1 day. It's either forever or 1 day. Okay, well, what are we going to do about all the boats pulled up onshore throughout the summertime? They're all in violation. We might have to differentiate between we might have to define or quantify long-term storage in terms of the boating season or May to September. There's going to be a zillion contraventions of this if we put it through exactly as it reads.
What kind of boats are you talking about?
Sailboats, canoes, motorboats, whatever.
And they're pulled right up onto the shoreline?
Yeah, I can speak to several shoreline situations, including Wanasing, where people got their boats pulled right up close to the dike, and they're just not supposed to be there. So what are you going to do with your? I'm not sure how this would affect. It's probably a separate property issue. I mean, all the boats pulled up at the yacht club, that probably doesn't qualify. But you go. There's some at Albert Beach from time to time. There's always some at Wanasing, and I don't want to seem that I'm too focused on Wanasing, but hey, that's where I come from, and that's what I know. And then working your way north, there's boats pulled up on the shore all along there.
There's also, it's not just boats, it's lawn chairs, it's
rafts.
umbrellas, rafts.
There's the,
And the
you put a raft.
enforcement is very difficult.
Yeah, but why write into the bylaw provisions that make it even more difficult to enforce it?
Couple of things. This is not a new bylaw.
Oh, no, I know. I'm not blaming you for this.
I don't care about the blame. It's not about the blame part. It's about, has anybody gone crazy finding people? So nothing has changed. The difference is when you put 1 day, now it gives us the authority to make you remove it. Otherwise, what are you going to put there?
Yeah.
Where are you going to draw the line in the sand that you're going to tell somebody to move it? And
Well,
who's
I've
going to
seen
monitor?
yeah.
Going to monitor how many days somebody's junk is sitting there? Like it's.
All right, so if it's been more than 1 day, we do have the right, because they're, we're aware of examples of boats sitting on the dike, and so on and so on. Okay, well, it's pretty hard to define a boating season, and then that's rather parochial. So after 1 day, you're liable if you got your boat pulled up on shore. Once again, this would probably be triggered by a complaint rather than the shore patrol.
I would say, I don't know what happened in the past, but I don't think they're going out there.
Well, you can speak to
taking
this better than I can. The way this is worded has not been a problem in the past. So if it, works don't fix it, fine. I can believe that, but it could always be changed in future if it becomes an issue.
Yes,
that's good enough for me. Thank you.
Steve, did you have a comment? No?
It's a really good point. I think we should probably take a closer look at it. I don't necessarily have any problem with putting this through now, but I think Graham brings up a fairly good point, as that we haven't been enforcing it, so what's the point of it?
Okay, so we can pass first reading and...
We need it. It's insurance.
Okay, so we can pass, well, I shouldn't say we can pass, we can vote on first reading and then discuss it further. So think about it, review it again.
I have a few ideas as to what we can do, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be right now.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of first reading? Carried, thank you. Moving on, Victoria Beach Utility, 2019 anticipated operating deficit. Whereas it is anticipated that the Victoria Beach utility will incur an operating deficit in 2019, and whereas subsection 165(2) of the Municipal Act requires the municipality to advise the Public Utilities Board of the anticipated deficit and request the board's approval of the deficiency, and whereas Council is proposing to recover the deficit by a drawdown from accumulated surplus, therefore be it resolved that the arm of Victoria Beach Council authorize the CAO to submit an application for approval of the anticipated deficit as proposed by the municipality to the board. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any discussion on this resolution? All right, Raymond, will you want to speak to it?
The reason I'm doing this resolution is because the Public Utilities Board requires the municipality and all municipalities and all towns, villages that operate water systems to include amortization as an expenditure. And as you all know, that's a non-cash transaction. The amortization for the Victoria Beach utility is $122,492, which makes it absolutely impossible to end up in a surplus position at the end of the year, putting that into the accounting system. Our actual real surplus is probably going to be, I'm guessing right now, it could be $50,000, it could be more. The real surplus, or real operating surplus. We just raised the rates considerably. However, just to give you an example, we have $232,600 in actual revenue as of right now, and we've got expenditures of just under $165,000. That's without the $122,000 amortization put into the numbers. The numbers cannot work putting the 122 and change in there, but that's PUB's rules, and we have to abide by their rules. So it is what it is. The Municipal Act requires us to seek approval of an anticipated operating deficit, which, as far as I'm concerned, we don't have, but in their eyes, we do. And so it is what it is.
Surplus is approximately $67,000, so writing off a deficit of 100 and some thousand just doesn't work. There's not enough surplus.
It's silliness, but that's...
We suggest the PUB accountants go back to school?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it is, well,
what can you say?
Your report will comply with their requirements, but we know when we agree and we support your version of numbers that really do work, so that's fine.
Any further discussion?
The net effect is they're charging that depreciation twice, because initially the municipality, the ratepayers were assessed a fee when the water treatment plant was put into force, and they paid for that. And now they're charging it again. It seems like it's a double dip.
Yeah, the way the amortization works, for anybody who doesn't understand it, it's basically the whole water system cost approximately between $3.5 and $4 million. And so that's inputted into your system, into your accounting system. And under Public Sector Accounting Board rules, and we do comply with them, you have to take in the amortization. That's all fine. And the way that works is it's a straight line method, so it's the same number every year unless you have a serious or significant addition or deletion from your system. So it's $122,000 over the period of however many years it takes to write it off. So in other words, if you're collecting that back, you've already charged the water customer the $3.5 to $4 million, and you're going to charge him or her an additional $123 every year. You're getting it twice. They don't agree with that accounting. So it's unfortunate, but that's what we're stuck with. And
What's the potential impact going forward on this in terms of, the rate studies and so forth? Will that force us to further increase rates?
Well, that's quite possible, because they criticized us for kind of excluding it in the rate study. Well, it was in the rate study, but when you look at the numbers they gave us, I mean, it's not in the rate study, right? I mean, they approved $225,000 of rates, but when they look at, if they're going to use their numbers, we're at almost $300,000 of expense with the amortization. So how does those numbers don't jive? It doesn't work.
What's our risk?
Well, we just keep doing what we're doing, and eventually we're going to have another rate study, but they haven't required one until another 3 years. And in reality, we are operating, and we will operate with surpluses, barring some major breakdown. So I think we just do the status quo, we get this thing approved, and we'll use the surplus we have this year to offset the deficit, the PSAB deficit.
Yeah, there's been quite a turnaround. I mean, this time last year, we were running at an $83,000 deficit, and now we have a $67,000 surplus. So
yeah, and
the rate increase, will over time allow us to rebuild and establish surpluses.
Last year, the deficit with the public sector accounting board standards included were $210,000 in a deficit position. Yeah.
The bottom line is that our ratepayers will not pay 1 penny more as a result of PUB's method of accounting until such time as we go back to the well in 3 years. There may even be ways that we can reimburse back through taxes, but we'll worry about that when that comes. In the meantime, nobody's getting overcharged above and beyond, notwithstanding PUB's opinion.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Yeah. Moving on to a resolution on media training. Be it resolved that council members be authorized to attend the media training workshop with respect to emergency events on November 6th in East Selkirk or November 12th in St. Pierre-Jolie. Further be it resolved that the municipality cover all costs, associated costs to attend said training workshop as per the terms of bylaw 1578. Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. Any further discussion on this? Who would like to attend?
The names are going to be filled in later?
Yes.
It just says members of council.
Yeah. November 6th in East Selkirk.
Yeah, I spoke up for November 6th. Since then, something else comes up. It's a 50-50. I'll let you know well in advance, but I'm covered by that if I'm able to attend. Okay. And I think there was one or two spoke up for the 12th.
No.
Okay. Okay, Mike, you had a date in mind, the 12th. I'm looking at the 12th.
I would have to do the 6th.
I'll check my dance card.
She's in the front row. Can we just check with her?
She's in Montreal.
Oh, all right. All right. Any further discussion? Let's let Raymond know what dates we choose and...
What was the cost associated with that?
It's with our own emergency
yeah, so it's no charge.
Coordinator. Well,
yeah, because Shelley's doing it.
Meeting and mileage, though.
Oh, yeah, that part. Okay, thank you very much. Yep.
All right. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. One more addition, or the addition to the agenda. Be it resolved that Reeve McMorris be authorized to attend the public consultation session regarding the future accessibility standard for transportation at the Viscount Court Hotel on November 7th, 2019. Further be it resolved, the municipality cover all associated costs to attend said event as per the terms of bylaw 1578. We'll sign it and see where we go. Maybe others are interested. I'm not sure. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any discussion on this? Anyone else wish to attend? The chair of the Accessibility Committee would like to attend, and I believe one other member of the Accessibility Committee would like to attend. It's a half-day session. There's no charge for the session, just mileage.
Likely I would try and attend.
And Erwin, you're on the committee, so you'll try and attend?
All right. And mileage consider that would extend to members of the Accessibility Committee as well?
Yes.
All right, but it's not a great cost, and it's a worthwhile deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any more discussion? November 7th. Dance cards full? Okay. All right. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. So can we add Rod and Mike Fellows?
Yeah, but that's
Okay. Right. Right.
covered.
Okay. All right. I think we are moving on to correspondence. Anything jump out at any council member in the correspondence? I have one if you don't.
Which one do you have?
The one I have came from Manitoba Conservation, and it's regarding feeding of wildlife. So I'd just like to make the public a little more aware. Our conservation officer has been dealing with complaints of foxes at Victoria Beach. They had a call last week from a resident complaining that the neighbor was feeding foxes, and the foxes have become a nuisance and a public safety concern in the area. They're too friendly, and they're approaching children in her yard. Conservation officer spoke to the residents who were feeding the foxes and asked that they stop, giving them reasons why it's not helping the animals in the long run. He set live traps, and he has captured and relocated 3 foxes with 2 more to go that he's aware of. I think it's council's responsibility at this point to perhaps send out a reminder. We need to word something and send it out on e-news to remind people that feeding the wildlife is only making you happy. It's not really making them happy. They become a nuisance and a danger to the public. And people feeding the foxes are not only attracting the foxes, but the coyotes, the raccoons, the skunks, and the bears. As the conservation officer sat in the person's driveway, he saw 3 foxes, 1 black bear, as well as a coyote earlier in the day. So please do not feed the wildlife. Let's be bear smart, let's be deer smart, let's let them be wild animals. So I think council needs to put something together and get it on our website and get it out.
I agree. Your suggestion was on the website and e-news as well. We just need some reasonable, suitable wording. Perhaps Raymond could put something together based on your report.
And I also have a tip line, which is a toll-free line for conservation. And he suggested that we also give out his office phone number, not his cell number, but his office phone number. And many of you may know that a bear broke into a cottage on Bayview this past weekend and helped himself to their Thanksgiving dessert. But it was a big bear. It's on social media. And conservation did not hear about this until they saw it on social media. And if they're coming into your cottage, they're a problem. They're a nuisance, and this is a big bear. And we wouldn't want anyone to get hurt. Hopefully that wouldn't happen. But so he says, please call conservation. Please call the TIP toll-free line, and we can put that in our information.
Absolutely. And as Mike mentioned, right now is prime time for bears. So I would hope that this could be on the website, e-news, within days, hours, as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe days, but just a reminder to the public. He's a big bear. Okay, well, Tom, I will give you the TIP toll-free line, and you can call. Because if they don't get the call, they don't know that where they are, right? And maybe by the time they get here, the bear will be gone, but at least they know.
And as soon as they get here, they'll tell you, why didn't you tell me sooner?
Yeah. Okay, so that was my correspondence.
Good for you.
Steve?
So this one's from the, not the Minister of Education, but the, somebody in his office who'd responded to. I was trying to follow up with the fact that we don't have voting rights to the school board, to the Lord Selkirk School Division, which is, has some fairly, it's very problematic, especially given how much money we send every year. And then I also followed up regarding the school taxes and trying to ensure that they hold to their promise to take the taxes off of the property tax and put it onto income tax. Anyway, I just wanted to read the two because I think it's important for the constituents to know. The governance framework for school boards is articulated in the Public Schools Act. The Act establishes boards of 5 to 9 trustees and requires that wards, as represented by trustees, have approximately the same number of resident voters in each ward. For the Lord Selkirk School Division, this means that Selkirk and the RM of St. Andrews have more than one trustee, while the trustee for the RM of Victoria Beach, Mr. Ken Avery, also represents other neighboring communities. In other words, they didn't want to answer the question as to why we don't have voting rights. In regards to school taxes, I can confirm that the government is committed to removing school taxes from property tax bills. The government has committed that once the provincial budget is balanced, school taxes will be reduced by 10% annually until they have been eliminated from property tax bills.
Okay. I looked into this pretty closely a couple of years ago, and a number of conversations with personnel at the Lloyd Selkirk School Division, and they explained to me, convinced me, unless they're wrong, that within RMVB, permanent residents can vote in the Lloyd Selkirk School Board. Yeah, the moot point being is that they make up such a small percentage of the population. But I know I'm on their list.
I'm not, because I'm not a permanent resident, yet I still pay the taxes.
Yeah, right.
That's the issue. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I do support education, so, you know. All right.
Just real quick, I do want to say that my final placement is at the Comp, and what they do at that school is incredible. It's really well managed in terms of finances. I haven't really seen any overspending or any abuse of the monies. In fact, it really is impressive what the children have there in terms of opportunities. So.
I think you might want to talk to some of the teachers at Walter White. They may have a different perspective.
Okay.
Or, yeah.
What's the name of your school? What's it going to be?
The Selkirk.
Well, it's the Comp, the high school.
In Selkirk.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yep. Right, thanks.
Great. Thank you. All right. We're moving on to question period, I believe. And are there any questions? And if there are, can you please state your name and please ask a question? Not a dissertation. You're not a delegation. You're asking a question at the microphone. Yes. Thanks, Stuart.
It's at the recycle.
Your name, young man?
You know it.
I know, but not everyone on council does.
Ben Sabrin.
Thank you.
From 21 Girard, ROE2CO. My question is, why are we not putting at the recycle the glass unit right next to, on the other side of the ramp?
When the company that brings those great big bins in comes in, they have one bin on the truck, and they unload it on one side, and then they pick up the other green bin and put it on the back of the truck and leave. So they are alternating side to side. So yes, sometimes the glass bin is a little walk away. It's because they can't unload load and unload at the same time.
Because if you're on the ramp or whatever, and you got a bottle of a bottle of wine,
Yeah.
you're not going to go down over there and throw it in that bin. So it goes to the general bin. That's what's happening. Another thing that's happening is every time that I go there, I have to go to Chamois. There's so much what do you call it, slush, I guess you'd call it slush, around the area. It gets so dirty, it dirties the car, it costs me $25 to clean it up again. So it'd be nice to have some half-inch stone or something in front so that you're not walking into all that mush.
Okay.
Thank you.
Points taken. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically, you have done a number of bylaw discussions today, which is good, but there's only 34 bylaws on the website at the moment. So I was wondering, we don't really actually know what the bylaws are that you are discussing, and I was wondering whether or not they will be put on the website.
Yes, they will.
Okay. And another clarification, when you went out for your ride around on the fire truck, did you go out during the day or at night?
It was at night
Why not during the day?
because our firefighters are volunteers and most of them have jobs during the day, so they do their training at night.
But they all went out with you rather than...
There was 7 of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Not
Okay.
their full complement.
But it looks very different during the day, just to let you know.
Absolutely it does.
okay.
But the same trees hit the truck
Right,
at
right. No, I
night
understand.
or during the day.
I
but
understand, yeah. I mean, they're high, yeah. I do.
Yeah.
And the final question, very quickly,
Excuse
is...
me, Stuart, for the record, can you identify yourself?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Stuart Jusda, 426 8th Avenue. Okay. And
Erwin.
the final question is, you read out a letter from a lawyer, I believe, a law firm, regarding sort of riparian rights. Which law firm put out the sort of opinion to the council?
That letter came from Aikens, Macaulay, and Thorvaldson, and it is in the Manitoba Shoreline Management Handbook, 2000.
That's
It's
what
a public
read.
document.
Yeah, actually, I've read that. Actually, the only copy is in the Winnipeg Public Library. But the only trouble is, it's a legal opinion. It is not law. Okay?
That's
And
right.
basically, the only way to establish law is through jurisprudence. And so basically, an opinion is simply that. Another law firm could give a different opinion. So relying on an opinion is not necessarily the best thing to do.
Thank you. Sure.
There is a court case stated in that legal opinion, which clearly, it's a Manitoba court case, and it confirms what we have spoken about today. So if you have access to it, you can read it and you'll see. I have it, I can email it to you. It's a public document, there's no big secret there. Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Stuart. Go ahead.
Linda McMillan, 8 Siglinski Crescent. Last year when you took over council, you suggested that if a question was posed to you and given 5 days' notice, it could be read at council and answered at council meetings. And I sent in a question last Wednesday morning asking a question that I think everyone in this community deserves to have heard. And you haven't followed your own rules of September last year.
Did you get an answer to your questions?
I did not ask for a question to be sent to me by email. I specifically asked it to be read at council and answered. And yes and no is the correct answer. Part of the question was answered, but not all of the question. So, my question has to do with the fact that for the last month, gravel has been leaving the gravel pit on a regular basis, starting at 8 in the morning and running through until 6 at night, most days, 4 or 5 days a week. My question was, there hasn't been this much activity since Pelican Point was developed back in the late 80s. What is happening to the gravel?
As was answered in the email.
Excuse me, Penny, I haven't finished.
Can you get to the question then, please?
Yes, the question asked what was happening to the gravel, what was being, where it was going, and I did get an answer that said it is being used on the dike. But there were 3 parts to that question, and one of them hasn't, or 2 of them haven't been answered. I'm told it's going to the dike at Albert Beach, which means along the municipal road next to Mr. Poirier's property. And I know, as you know, that road is not well built. It was an emergency road. But there's the other piece right next to Thompson's property. Have you paid Mr. Thompson so that we will not have to remove the dike again? If so, how much has been paid? What circumstances have you done in order to get access and egress? I also was concerned about the company that was employed, how much it was costing us, and I did get a phone call saying, we've got a little money left over in that dike building. But I still am left wondering, how are you managing permission from Mr. Thompson, who is so, he's been holding us up for years getting a permanent dike there?
There were more, that was a lot of questions. We agreed with Mr. Thompson that we would move to repair his road, his access that was damaged when the
2010, I think it was.
2008, 2008.
Which one is that?
Mr. Thompson's property.
The one that we're storing now?
Yeah.
Well, it has to do with what was damaged. Fixed 2014.
Right.
I'm sorry,
2014.
CEO, I'm not hearing you.
We're talking...
I'm just asking him a question. We had approval, we had a tender process, we got the tender awarded, and the gravel is being taken from our pit by the contractors to save money. We have money left over from disaster financial assistance to repair the dike that was part of Mr. Thompson's access. That is where the gravel is going. We're not paying Mr. Thompson anything. I don't know quite what you're talking about there.
Well, I'm not just concerned about how we're getting that last 10 feet worth of permission to put a dike on Mr. Thompson's property.
We're repairing the road access into Mr. Thompson's property that was ruined years ago.
So that there will still be a gap at the end of the dike and water will still come into Albert Beach?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what dike you're talking about.
There's the piece that runs on the back of Gerard that we were negotiating years ago to get it in so that Albert Beach was fully secured and waterproof.
That's not part of this project, no.
Okay, so I still don't have a very good answer as to where all this gravel is going because, as I say,
it's going on to the road access on Mr. Thompson's property that we agreed to fix.
Okay, and he's going to not request that the RM remove it again as he did earlier?
He never requested that we remove anything.
That original dike was not there.
I don't know which original dike you're referring to now.
Okay.
The road that runs
There was a dike built many years ago under emergency measures, and
Yes.
it was crooked. It wasn't straight. And it was straightened. It was a three-party agreement between Mr. Poirier, the Arm of Victoria Beach, and Mr. Thompson. And that dike remains. That dike was straightened. This has got nothing to do with this. This has got to do with a 2014 heavy rain event, and Mr. Thompson's property was damaged because the municipality went in there under the Emergency Measures Act, removed material, and placed it elsewhere to protect Albert Beach. Meanwhile, his property has been left in that state since 2014. And I have cleared that with disaster financial assistance. The municipality had approximately $90,000 left that was unspent, and this project was approved by DFA. So we subsequently tendered it and have awarded the council awarded the contract, and they're in the process of restoring his property back more or less to its original state.
That's good. Thank you for clarifying that. My C part to the question had been, was there any concern for the environmental damage being done in this square mile as a result of all of this construction? And I did not put in the D part, which is, are you planning on fixing Macaulay Road when all this truck traffic is finished making potholes in it?
Road maintenance and keeping our streets and roads in a decent working condition is a continuing and ongoing issue. So I have every reason to expect that that'll be addressed, and that'll probably stand out as one of the ones that needs work most the soonest. But that just falls under maintaining roads. It goes on forever.
And the gravel pit will have to be resloped or whatever they are mandated to do by the province after they use it.
Okay,
And that
thank
was
you.
in the email.
I'm very concerned about, the degradation of trees and things like that in the neighborhood, too.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, any questions? All right. Be it resolved, the October 15th, 2019 regular council meeting be adjourned. Next regular council meeting to be held on November 5th at 6:30 p.m., 705 1661 Portage Avenue in Winnipeg. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka.
No discussion.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Yeah.